Good morning, everybody. I know it is very early on a Wednesday for some of you, but I appreciate you being here. I also know that we're just now starting to filter in, and that's really cool. We've still got about 10 minutes before we get started, but y'all know I like to log in a little bit early, say hi, see if there are questions, that sort of thing. Hello, Jason. Welcome. What are some of the biggest barriers you have identified on in helping your clients develop assertiveness? Wow, we've got 27 people. I looked away and I looked back, and all of a sudden the room's starting to fill up. That's pretty awesome. So I will ask the question again for those of you who just logged in. What are some of the biggest barriers to your clients for developing assertiveness? And, oh gosh, I am going to need to clean my glasses before this starts. Whew. Hello, Adriana. Good morning, Bridget and Teresa. Oh, much better. Belittling by significant others. That's definitely something we're going to talk about today. Certainly, old patterns and natural reactions. If you were taught it's not safe to be assertive, or if you were taught that it's not appropriate to be assertive, then you may not have developed those skills, and it may feel uncomfortable to try to develop them in the present. And we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about the barriers to assertiveness. Hello, Paula, Cassandra, Carol, Louise, Coenda. Yes, hello to all of you. I've said hi to everybody else, so I'll stop there. Oh, hello, Gwendolyn. I am glad to have you all here. Remember this weekend, hey, Roller Girl, welcome. I know it's early there. Always glad to see you. This Saturday, we are going to have our final CEU Blitz marathon when we're talking about the neuroscience of mental health. So if you're interested in that, we would love to have you as part of the class. The class itself is not going to be live on YouTube, because for the longer ones, I really like to have them on our learning management system, so people have the opportunity to use their audio to ask questions and stuff. And so we address all of that. But so you're welcome to join us. It is at allceus.com. If you are an unlimited member for CEUs, it is already included in your unlimited membership, so you can just jump in with us. Hello, Michelle and Neil and Chuck, of course. Lack of confidence. That's a great point. Lack of confidence. I don't know how to put it out there, what's going to happen. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is approaching helping people overcome their barriers to assertiveness by addressing the trauma that may have come with it and helping them feel safe doing that in the present. There we go. 42 people. Well, that's wonderful. If you are here to learn about assertiveness skills and you are not a clinician, welcome. I will be talking about a lot of things that are very practical today. This is going to be one of the less jargony clinical presentations, so hopefully you will enjoy it. And please feel free to participate in the chat as we're going through this. Anna, I am glad I've been able to be of service to you. How many of you were taught assertiveness skills growing up? Welcome, Dallas. Hello, Ciara. Where are you in Florida, if you don't mind my asking? Just, obviously general city area. I don't know whether you learned to be assertive or not in the military, Chuck. Depends on whether you were a drill sergeant or not, I suppose. Anymore, Paula, I would agree. Most people do avoid interacting in assertive ways because when they do, it's often perceived as, the word I hate, narcissistic. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but assertiveness is stating your thoughts, wants, and needs, putting them on the table, not throwing them at somebody else, not expecting them to take on those thoughts, wants, and needs, but putting it out there on the table and allowing the other person to share their thoughts, wants, and needs if they want to. But we're not telling somebody your thoughts, wants, and needs are right or wrong. We're just acknowledging your thoughts, wants, and needs are yours. And that's what assertiveness is, really respecting those boundaries and stating our thoughts, wants, and needs in a non-aggressive, but informative way, I guess. And Michelle, I think a lot of us were taught passive aggressive or flat out aggressive, depending on the environment you grew up in. So certainly. Yuli, awesome. We may be moving back down to Gainesville, which is where we actually hail from. So it should be interesting. No problem, Kawinda. I'm sorry that you had extenuating circumstances. That doesn't sound good. Hello, Shad. And Michelle, if I didn't say welcome to you, welcome. In what way do you think that a lack of assertiveness skills contributes to a lot of your clients' problems? Their anxiety, their depression, their sense of hopelessness, helplessness, lack of safety, sense of isolation. Hello, Creative World. Automation 111, welcome. And yes, we do get a lot, Automation 111, you're right. We do get a lot of mixed messages. People saying you're supposed to be assertive, but then when you try to be assertive, people reacting negatively. So there's definitely a quandary there that we've got to help people navigate as they become assertive. I agree, Paula. And one of the interesting things, a little diatribe here on social media and on internet communications in general, there's a phenomenon called disinhibition. And people will say things online that they would never say to somebody face to face. And because they feel safer behind their computer, even if they're in a video chat or something, they may say things that they wouldn't necessarily say in person. But definitely if it's text only with no video, people tend to be more disinhibited. Greetings, Lisa. Welcome. And hello, El Lacau. Alrighty, it's that time. We have got a ton to cover. Hello, Maria. So I want to go ahead and get started, but I really enjoyed the beginning of our conversation, and I'm going to try to wrap all that into what we talk about today. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's presentation on developing safety by developing assertiveness. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn-Elise Snipes. In this presentation, we're going to define assertiveness, talk about the benefits, talk about a lot of the barriers to becoming assertive, and then move into strategies to become more assertive and help people learn to tolerate the distress as they're becoming more assertive. Assertiveness means stating your feelings, wants, and needs clearly. This is what I think, feel, need right now. I'm just taking it, and think of it as taking little cards and putting them on the table. As my father used to say, put all your cards on the table. You're stating it with ownership. These are my thoughts, wants, and needs. They're not necessarily yours, and I'm not telling you that they should be yours. I'm just telling you that these are mine. This is what I prefer, or this is what I think. And I'm stating with conviction. I'm stating this is what I think, not this is what I think, kind of, if that's okay, but I don't know. You know, I could be wrong. And when people back it up with the but I don't know, I could be wrong, that's the hedge against the fear of retaliation, the fear of threat. Now, certainly, we don't know everything about everything all the time. You know, look at those cognitive distortions there. However, if we have a firmly held belief, then we probably have reasons for that. We can be open to new information. We can be open to changing our beliefs. We don't have to hold steadfast to it. But when we do believe something, we state it, and we don't backpedal and give people room to sort of push us in a different direction if we don't want to consider different perspectives. Assertive behavior may not be appropriate in all workplaces, and some organizational and national cultures may view assertive behavior as rude or even offensive. The military, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Being assertive with your drill sergeant, for example, may not be taken really well. You're supposed to do what you're told. Now, there are times to be assertive, and there are ways to follow the chain of command. But again, assertiveness needs to be done appropriately, and we need to recognize and modify our approach to it based on the culture that we're in, whether it's a national culture or a workplace culture. Research has also suggested that gender can have a bearing on how assertive behavior is perceived, with men more likely to be rewarded for being assertive than women. And we talked about this again a little bit before class, and there is a feeling among some now that assertive behavior in men may be actually punished more than in women at this particular date and time, and perceived as overly aggressive. We're going to talk about why those perceptions may exist. Now, remember, we all have our own reality, our own understanding and perceptions of the world based on our prior knowledge and our prior experiences. So what I may perceive as aggressive, somebody else may perceive as totally assertive. So we want to recognize the perceptions and be able to evaluate, was this person trying to invade my boundaries? Was this person being aggressive, or were they just stating a different opinion? Assertiveness, once we get used to doing it, can help us feel good about ourselves and others, because we're able to be more authentic. We're able to say, these are my thoughts, and I hear your thoughts. I may agree, I may not, but it doesn't mean I dislike you as a human being. I may disagree with your beliefs about something. That's okay. And helping people start to recognize that. When we're assertive, when we're telling people what our wants and needs are, it helps us feel good about ourselves and others, because we're not hoping somebody reads our mind. We're not expecting people to read our mind and know what we want. We're telling them, This is what I want, whether it's what I want for Christmas or my birthday, or what I want right now because I'm sick, or whatever it is. Expecting people to know or read your mind is unfair. And if we're assertive, then we let them know, this is what I want or what I need right now. And then the person can choose whether or not to honor our wants and needs. And we feel good about others because when we give them the opportunity to meet our wants and needs by letting them know what they are, then we feel more connected. We feel more appreciated, loved, cared about, whatever word is appropriate in the particular situation. Assertiveness leads to the development of mutual respect with others. When we're assertive, we're stating our thoughts, wants, and needs and putting them sort of out there on the table. The other person doesn't have to agree with them. They don't have to pick up your cards. They can put their own cards on the table. And we start to learn that people are sharing their thoughts, wants, and needs and being authentic, but that without judging us or the other person. It's like, okay, well, I totally disagree with you on that point. Still respect you as a person, still respect you as a human being. Assertiveness increases our self-esteem, again, because we're putting it out there and we're being authentic. We are learning to accept that not everybody is going to agree with us, and that's okay. We don't need every single person's approval to be okay. We start being able to recognize and be appreciated by people who share similar thoughts and beliefs and preferences and whatever else. Assertiveness helps us achieve our goals. When there's, for example, at home, maybe there are a bunch of things that need to be done, and you're just looking at the list going, I don't know how I'm going to get this all done. If we're assertive, we can say, family, sit down. There's a bunch of stuff we got to get done. I can't do it all myself. I'm being assertive. My needs are, I need help. And what I would like you to do is pick a task that you can get done to help get all of this stuff done. So we're achieving our goals by telling people what our needs are in order to help us achieve our goals. Now, we can also think about our rich and meaningful life. We haven't talked about that in quite a while. Once people know what people, things, relationships, experiences, etc., are in their rich and meaningful life, and how they want to use their energy to move toward that rich and meaningful life, then we can elicit help from others toward meeting those goals that are important in our rich and meaningful life. If I want to have a better relationship with my child and adult child, then I may say, okay, this is what I'm hoping our relationship could be like, and this is what I'm needing from you, or I'm wanting from you. It doesn't mean they have to give it to me, but I am stating I'd really like it if we could get to a place where we would both be able to enjoy spending time together once a week, or I would really enjoy it and appreciate it if you would come over for dinner once a week. You know, I'm stating my needs. I'm not expecting them to know what mama wants. I am telling them what I want, and then they have the option of doing it or not. And assertiveness is just that. We're asserting. We're not controlling. We're not demanding. We're informing. Assertiveness minimizes hurting and alienating other people. If we tell them our feelings, if we tell them our thoughts, wants, and needs in a compassionate, empathetic way, again, we're informing. We're not criticizing. We're not being aggressive. We're not telling. We're just saying, these are my needs. So we can avoid pushing other people away with our own frustration that our needs aren't getting met. And we see this a lot in clients where they say, you know, people never meet my needs. There's nobody out there that is supportive of me. And my question is usually, what does support look like to you? And then the follow-on question is, have you told the people in your life what you would like them to do to be supportive? And a lot of times the answer is no. So when the person feels unsupported and alienated, then they may get angry and push others away when the other people are going, I don't know what I did. Assertiveness reduces anxiety. You don't have to wonder where people stand. If you just put it out there and allow them to put their thoughts, wants, and needs on the table, then you know where everybody stands. You're not having to guess. Did you like that? Did you not like that? Whatever. Assertiveness protects us from being taken advantage of by others. We are stating our thoughts, wants, and needs, but being assertive isn't just one way. We're not just putting our stuff on the table. We are also upholding our own boundaries and saying, these are mine. You don't have to agree with them, but I don't have to change them either. Assertiveness enables us to make decisions and free choices in life, and enables us to express both verbally and non-verbally a wide range of feelings and thoughts, both positive and negative. And yes, assertiveness is non-verbal too. If I am talking assertively, but I'm sitting like this, that communicates two different things. And it's really hard to sit in sort of a closed off aggressive posture and sound open at the same time. I have to really work at it. And again, we're going to talk about nonverbals in a little while. When you are passive, which means you let people tell you what your thoughts, wants, and needs are, it's just fine. I'll think, feel, do whatever you want me to do. Or if you're aggressive, it goes the other way. You're telling everybody else what to think, what to feel, what to need. Then your feelings and wants are often not heard. And you're like, what? Didn't you just say I was telling people? Yeah, but let's think about it. When I'm passive, I am not telling what my thoughts, wants, and needs are. I'm just waiting for you to tell me. So of course, my feelings, wants, and needs are not being heard. If I'm being aggressive, think about when somebody's been aggressive towards you. How much have you really heard about what they said? Because as soon as they start being aggressive, we tend to go into fight or flight, and we tend to start feeling defensive. Direct aggression can be people who are being, or I'm perceiving as being, bossy, arrogant. They're just bulldozing me. I try to talk, and as soon as I do, they talk right over me. People who are being intolerant, telling me that my thoughts, wants, and needs are wrong. I disagree is different than you're wrong. My opinion is different than yours, but I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong. And that's one of those really fine nuances that it's hard for a lot of people to accept. When other people disagree with them, they assume that person is judging them and saying and thinking that they're wrong or they're stupid or something. People who are opinionated and overbearing can also be perceived as being aggressive. And we've all had people in our lives like this. And think about how you reacted. Did you react with aggression? Aggression usually begets aggression, or passivity. And how could you have handled that in a more assertive way, acknowledging their thoughts, wants, and needs, and making sure that you were able to assert yours? Indirect aggression is sarcasm, being deceitful, being ambiguous, insinuating, being manipulative, or using guilt to shame somebody into changing their thoughts, wants, and needs, telling them what a bad person they are for having these thoughts, wants, and needs. And direct and indirect aggression are both aggression. Ultimately, if when somebody's talking to you, you feel like you are on the defensive, then the other person was probably being aggressive. Likewise, if you're talking to somebody and they start kind of tensing up, and you see them starting to become defensive, and we can see that in people's posture. We want to recognize that they feel like we're trying to invade their boundaries. They feel like we're being aggressive. We may not be trying to be aggressive. However, their perception at that moment is their reality. So we need to take a moment to check ourselves and acknowledge it seems like you're feeling defensive. It seems like you're feeling vulnerable or threatened by what I'm saying, and that's not my intent. People who are submissive often don't get their thoughts, wants, and needs heard. If they, now they can be very quiet and just very passive, or they can be submissive and be groan and whine and complain. I'm not telling you anything. I'm just going to put it out to the universe how bad my world is. They often seem to be helpless, passive, indecisive, or apologetic. And remember, the way we communicate was learned over time. We learned this as we grew up. In addicted households, or chaotic households, I should say, because it's true if there's uncontrolled mental illness or uncontrolled addiction in the household, people often learn, don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. Whoever we'll call them the identified patient, whether it's the person with the addiction, the mental health issue, or the person with the violent tendencies, that person controls. That person's the aggressive one and is going to control, in many cases, what everybody else thinks, feels, and wants. So you could have grown up in an environment that to survive, you became passive. You could have grown up in an environment that to survive, you had to be aggressive. There were 8 children in your household, and to get heard, you had to, stand up and shout or something. You could have also been taught that indirectly by observation, watching your caregivers, watching the adults in your life communicate, and seeing that the people who communicated aggressively, for example, got their own way more. And as a child, what you're seeing is the cause, the effect. Cause, the effect. You're not seeing all the other consequences. Yes, I got my way now, but how is that going to impact the way others react to me and interact with me, and whether people want to be my friend? Yeah, I got the ball on the playground, but who's going to want to play ball with me if I'm a big old bully? Don't know. But kids aren't seeing that. So as children learn what they're living, and the close rewards to that. So we need to recognize as adults, hey, I learned to be aggressive because it seemed to work for me back then, but now I'm realizing that maybe it has more drawbacks. When you are not assertive, it leads to feelings of isolation, resentment, anger, depression, and hopelessness. If you're not assertive, you may feel like you're being taken advantage of all the time. Maybe you feel like your boss has put too much on your plate. And instead of going to your boss and going, dude, I can't possibly get all this done and I need some help prioritizing, you may suffer in silence, so to speak. Becoming assertive is stressful. When we start being assertive, when you're putting your cards out on the table, number one, you're being vulnerable. You're saying, these are my thoughts, wants, and needs. And that entails an amount of vulnerability. You're not going to be putting everything out there for everybody all the time. Again, distortions. But in certain situations, if, for example, going to your boss and saying, boss, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now and I need some help prioritizing. That may feel unacceptable. It may feel like you're afraid that you're going to be perceived as a failure. So becoming assertive is stressful. Putting it out there and saying, hey, I have this need. Are you willing to help me? As you become assertive, if you've behaved a different way, either passive or aggressive, you have to change the way you interact with others. And others have to change the way they interact with you. If they're used to you saying yes to everything and being completely passive, then when you start standing up for yourself and asserting your thoughts, wants, and needs, they're going to be like, whoa, I don't know if I can handle that. In the past, when you were in a stressful situation, think about whether you withdrew, you became aggressive, or you just shut down. Some people will, adopt that other person's thoughts, wants, needs, whatever. They're like, fine, I'll do it, or I'll believe it. Other people just shut down. It's like, I can't accept your thoughts, wants, and needs. I can't accept your perspectives, but I'm not willing to give up my own. So I'm going to shut down. It's kind of like the deer that's caught in the headlights. The stress response is designed to protect you, and ignoring the urge to fight or flee is extremely difficult until assertiveness has proven itself. A little bit different than stating your thoughts, wants, and needs. I remember one time I had screwed up. I had made a pretty significant error. And I remember thinking, I've got to go tell my boss this. And I have got to let him know what happened and what I'm going to do to fix it. But it was very anxiety provoking walking into his office that first time and saying, hey, I screwed up, because I didn't know when I put that out there on the table, I didn't know how he was going to respond. And thankfully he responded well. So I learned with him, it was very safe to be authentic and assertive. But when you're interacting with a new person, when you put your thoughts out there, and I'll use some examples right now. If you start talking about politics or religion, those are things that most people have very strong beliefs and thoughts about. And it can be hard to share that information because you don't know whether the other person is going to be able to accept that you have differing opinions, if they are going to share the same opinion, or if they're going to become downright aggressive. And assertiveness needs to be done with care. Again, you're not going to share your deepest, darkest secrets with people. You're not going to tell them, some of your more intimate wants and needs if they're your coworker. That's not appropriate. So we need to make sure that we're doing appropriate assertiveness. But we also need to recognize that feeling anxious about being assertive with somebody, especially until they have proven that they can handle our assertiveness, it's anxiety provoking. People in your social circle, the social barrier to assertiveness. And I guess before I get into this, I want to go back to trauma. When we experience trauma, we experience a sense of unsafeness and powerlessness. People who've experienced abandonment in the past or abuse in the past experienced trauma. Okay, I think we all agree with that. People who are in the present trying to become more assertive will often find it very anxiety provoking because it brings up those memories, those beliefs about whether it's safe to be assertive. And they learned in the past that if I'm assertive, people abandon me or people abuse me. Not okay. So being assertive now, that feels terrifying. We do want to recognize that. We want to help people connect the dots and understand why assertiveness feels so anxiety provoking for them and develop a plan for what they can do to start feeling safer. Now, some people it's not going to be safe to be assertive with. They feel anxious enough as it is. And when you start trying to be assertive with them, they may respond in a rage. People with borderline personality characteristics often have difficulty with assertiveness, because with other people being assertive with them, because they feel like that's rejection. If somebody says, no, I disagree, or no, I won't do that because, it's not good for me for whatever reason, the person with borderline personality traits may react very strongly, perceiving that as a rejection. And that opens up all those wounds of abandonment from the past. And they start reacting to those unhealed wounds. It's not necessarily what's going on in the present. So anyway, social barrier to assertiveness. People in your social circle expect you to act and react in a certain way. And when you don't, it throws them for a loop. Think about somebody, my grandmother, bless her heart. My grandfather used to be a very angry man. And when he would be under the influence of alcohol, it would kind of come out. And my grandmother wouldn't say a harsh word to anybody. And there was this time where my grandfather was just being particularly cantankerous, and she turned around to him. Now, he was like 6'2", he's a big guy, and she's all of 5 foot, 4'11" by the time she died. But she turns to him and she flips him the bird, and she says, Eddie, take this. And my grandfather just kind of froze. He's like, you don't talk that way to me. Oh my gosh. And then she turned around a minute later and she said, on second thought, Eddie, take a whole handful. The rest of us that were there just kind of died laughing, because not only was that behavior so uncharacteristic of her, but that behavior in front of others was just totally out of character. But he expected her to act in a certain way when he became cantankerous, and she didn't. And thankfully, he responded fine, and he was just like, okay, and, removed himself from the situation for a little bit. But other times, people just won't know how to respond. It's like, okay, you're being assertive. Oh my gosh, what do I do with this? And that can be helpful. Or it can be helpful in those times to restate that these are my thoughts and needs. I don't expect you to necessarily agree or to take them on. However, I felt the need to put them out there. Our egocentric society leads people to expect that if you change your behavior, it has to do with them. Well, you used to agree to do everything that I asked you to do. You always used to help me with all these things, and now you're not doing it. You don't like me anymore? Well, no, it may not have anything to do with you. It may have to do with me, and I've decided that I want to use my energy to focus on a variety of things instead of helping you move and clean your garage and do whatever every weekend. We need to make sure when we're assertive that we own our thoughts, wants, and needs, and why we're doing it. I really need to do this because spending time with my daughter this weekend is important to me. Not because you're unimportant, but because this over here is important. And sometimes we create that win-win, if you go back to Covey's 7 principles, and say, I can help you next weekend. Or next time, if you can give me some advance notice, then I might be able to do it. So once we're assertive, we put our stuff out there. Sometimes we need to compromise, but that's okay. Again, recognizing that when you tell somebody no, who you've pretty much never told no before, they're probably going to react poorly. I wish I could say there was something else, but when you tell somebody no, they're just like, you told me no. I feel offended because you told me no. So they're feeling angry because they're not getting their own way. And that's okay. It's okay for them to feel angry and reflect on exactly what their anger is about. That's their stuff. People strive for consistency. If you used to be aggressive, then the other person may interpret the change as depression, disengagement, or exploitable weakness. Ooh, she's not being aggressive. Let me just go in for the kill. If you used to be passive, they may interpret that change as rejection and a push away. So if you used to say yes to everything and you start saying no sometimes, then people may all of a sudden think, oh, they don't like me anymore. And again, we need to own why we're being assertive and make sure the other person doesn't feel rejected or pushed away. I'm not trying to be rejecting. It's not that I don't like spending time with you. However, blah. The belief barrier is another issue. Reality is 90% perception and 10% fact. When police officers survey a scene and ask people what happened, they ask 5 people, they're probably going to get 5 different responses. They're not going to, all 5 of them are not going to line up because everybody's perception was a little bit different. What they focused on was a little bit different. The way you perceive someone's behavior has more to do with your experiences with other people and similar behaviors than necessarily with them. What influences our interpretations? Well, prior learning, vulnerabilities. If you're in pain, if you're exhausted, if you are, vulnerable in some way, then you may be more likely to perceive people's behaviors as being overly aggressive or burdening. If you have transference or overgeneralization, you may assume that all people, bosses, for example, all people in authority, that you've had authority figures in your past who were aggressive, and now you just assume all people in authority are going to be aggressive and rejecting and hostile. So you expect it. So when they say something, you hear it or you see it through that expectation lens. And the other person's nonverbals can also influence your interpretations. I was talking to somebody yesterday in a very cold environment. And she was just a charming woman. And I'm trying to carry on this conversation, but I noticed the whole time I'm sitting there, with my arms crossed because I'm freezing. And, I kept trying to drop my arms and, do something like this. So it was clear to her that I was cold. And I think it's important. I could have said, if I was being assertive, I could have said, I hope you realize I'm just cold. I'm not trying to be rude. I didn't say that, but, paying attention to the other person's nonverbals. If she would have started to act put off, then I would have acknowledged that. But she was just, oh my gosh, she was all kinds of sunshine and sweetness. Another barrier is a threat assessment. Failure to be assertive often stems from prior efforts to be assertive and being punished, whether that was as a child or as an adult or both. The fear of rejection. If you've been abandoned before, if you've been rejected before by somebody who was important to you, then you may fear that if I'm assertive and they disagree with me, they're going to reject me. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. And that going along with the fear of rejection is the need for external validation. Many people are afraid to be assertive because they need others to like them. They don't feel like they're okay in their own skin, so they rely on others to provide this constant validation. And when that happens, obviously, if I'm relying on validation from you, I am going to tend to be more of a chameleon and more passive and try to be more whatever it is you want me to be, so you will tell me I'm okay. And in doing that, I may be meeting your needs, but I may also be getting my needs kind of stomped all over. Okay, so reality check. It's important to help people engage in a reality check when they start thinking about becoming assertive. Check their automatic beliefs or current beliefs against reality. You're interacting with your boss and they make this like weird grimace with their face. You start thinking, oh, they must not have liked what I had to say. So you start feeling anxious. You start feeling defensive potentially. So my perception of what's going on is my boss made that grimace, and that means that they disagreed with me, and there's going to be problems. So then, once I know my perception, what evidence do I have for and against this perception, for and against this belief? What were my boss's words? Did they say something that led me to believe, hey, that's not okay, or not? Or am I just assuming based on that one nonverbal? And again, what were their nonverbals? Well, he grimaced. Okay. What other reasons might your boss have grimaced while you're talking to them? Maybe he got a cramp in his hamstring, or who knows? There can be a lot of reasons. Or maybe there was something he had stuck in his teeth and he was like trying to get it out. Had that happen to me before. How valid is the evidence that you're using to support your perception? So again, yes, he grimaced, but do you know why he grimaced? Can I say with certainty he grimaced because he disagreed with me or didn't like this? Am I reacting to my feelings, my assumptions, my perceptions, or am I reacting to facts? Am I magnifying or catastrophizing? So, okay, maybe my boss did grimace because he disagreed with me. Is that a big deal? I mean, I've worked in places for a quarter century now, and I've realized that people aren't always going to agree with me, and people aren't always going to like my ideas, and that's okay. I'm going to put them out there, and if they like them, great. If they don't, then maybe we can figure out how to change them, or maybe I can just disregard them completely, but whatever. Just because my boss grimaces doesn't mean he thinks I'm an idiot, doesn't mean he is getting ready to fire me, doesn't mean, all these crazy magnified thoughts or beliefs that I may have. What I really need to recognize is my boss, worst case scenario, may not have liked what I just said. Okay, so what do I do about that? The first step is to ask. It seems like you grimaced when I said that. Do you disagree? What's your thought about what I just said? And considering, have I stated my feelings and needs objectively and clearly? Maybe he was grimacing because what you said didn't seem to make any sense. And he may say, that didn't make any sense. You want to try again? 6 characteristics of assertiveness: eye contact, body posture. And with Zoom, oh my gosh, and YouTube presentations with cameras, it is so hard. But especially with Zoom, when you're trying to look at somebody on screen, what they see is you looking away. The only way it looks like you're looking at them is if you're looking at the camera. So we've actually lost that connection in Zoom meetings. Body posture. Congruent body language improves the significance of the message. If I say, no problem, not a big deal, that's going to come across as very different than fine, whatever. Gestures. Appropriate gestures help to add emphasis. When you're telling somebody, it would really mean a lot to me. And, I didn't even think about it, but when I started saying that, I put my hands over my heart. So using appropriate gestures to add emphasis. And y'all know I gesticulate a lot. Your voice. A level, well-modulated tone is more convincing and acceptable and not as intimidating. If I'm going into a situation and I feel passionately about something and I'm afraid you're going to be rejecting of it, if I come in like a mouse and just, kind of, sort of, maybe this is my thought. Or if I come in like a bulldozer, this is my thought, this is the right way, you have to agree. Both of them are going to take people sort of off guard. So we do need to modulate our tone as appropriate for that particular situation. Timing. Use your judgment to maximize receptivity and impact. If I am going to be assertive with somebody and I'm going to tell them that I disagree with them about something, for example, then I'm not going to walk up to them the minute that they walk into the office and I'm going to say, I've been thinking about what you said yesterday and I totally disagree. That feels aggressive. It's like somebody's chasing you down to tell you that they disagree with you. So using your judgment, if you notice that someone is tired, sick, in pain, feeling overwhelmed, they're already stressed out, probably not the time to open a new discussion that may prompt a sense of defensiveness in them. Maybe better to wait until they're a little bit more rested. And content, how, where, and when you choose to comment is often more important than what you say. I can say the same thing to somebody in a very public area in a meeting. I can call them out in a meeting and they're going to get defensive because I put them on blast. Or I can say the very same thing to them privately in my office. They may not like it, but the chances of them becoming defensive are a lot less. So we need to consider the person's comfort level. When we're being assertive, again, and I said it a bunch of times, but I'm going to say it again because this is all about creating safety. We need to make sure that we feel safe, so we're not starting out from a fight or flight posture, but we also need to make sure that the other person feels safe and that when we tell them whatever we need to tell them, they're going to continue to feel safe. They're not going to feel rejected. They're not going to feel criticized unnecessarily. Sometimes you got to provide constructive feedback, which is why when you're providing constructive feedback, it's always helpful to start out with the good stuff. I really appreciate how hard you've been working, and the clients that are on your caseload just absolutely love working with you. And we really need to have a discussion about ways to improve the timeliness of your paperwork, because that is the only, boondoggle that is really standing in your way of a great evaluation. Making sure that they know that they are respected, they are accepted, and they're safe. And if you point out an issue, then acknowledging this is an issue. It's not that I don't like you. I don't like the fact that your progress notes are 2 weeks late. If you're talking with somebody, maybe you're on a first date, or maybe you've been married for 20 years and you need to bring something up. You need to be assertive about something. Again, it's really important to consider, what can I do in this situation when I'm going to be assertive to make sure this person feels safe. Too often people will call up their significant other or whatever, and they say, when you get home tonight, we need to talk. Now, what kind of a tone does that set for a lot of people? Are they going to walk into the house from work that night and think, no big deal, let's have a dinner, whatever? Or are they going to walk in and already be on the defensive because there's something that you need to talk about? Yes, you may need to have a talk. However, it's probably not helpful to prime somebody ahead of time, at least if you don't tell them what it's about. If you say, we need to talk about your kid skipping school. Okay, we'll talk about that when we get home. But just that vague, we need to talk, is very anxiety provoking for most people. Assertive behaviors means being open and expressing wishes, thoughts, and feelings, and encouraging others to do likewise. Listening to the views of others and responding appropriately, even if you don't agree with those views. Now, obviously, if you agree, it's like, yeah, totally, I get it. And if you disagree, it's like, okay, not my perspective, but I respect your thoughts. Sometimes, if it's a firmly held belief, if it's something that's really important to you, like politics or religion or something else, it may be one of those things that's like, okay, we differ here. If this person continues to talk about this and their perspective, am I going to start feeling defensive? And if so, then maybe not go there. Likewise, if they disagree with you, you also have to consider, is this a topic that's worth debating? My son has a really difficult time identifying that appropriateness. He and I disagree on a couple of very fundamental things, and he will just sit there and try to debate with me literally for hours and tell me his point of view without acknowledging mine. And it feels like he's telling me what to think. Now, in reality, he's not doing that. He likes to assert his positions. But I have to check myself and acknowledge, okay, let's hear what he has to say. Doesn't mean I have to take it on. So we do need to check those things in ourselves. We need to accept responsibilities and be able to delegate to others. That's assertive. If I say, I will take this on and I need help with this, instead of, sure, I'll do it, and you're doing 6 people's work. That's not assertive. That's being a doormat. Regularly expressing appreciation for others for what they have done or are doing. That's assertive. When we talk about what is going right, when we talk about what people are doing well, what we appreciate about what they're doing or about them, because remember, people are different than behaviors. It goes a long way. We're being assertive not only when there's constructive feedback or differences, but also we're being assertive by putting our thoughts and feelings about what they're doing out there when it's positive. We're saying, hey, I really appreciate this. We're being assertive when we admit mistakes and apologize. Sometimes we just got to own up and say, I screwed up and I'm sorry. And that's assertive. If you're being passive, you're just like, oh, I hope they don't remember. If you're being aggressive, it's like, I don't have to apologize. When you apologize, you are acknowledging, hey, I overstepped or I made a mistake and I recognize that negatively influenced you and I'm sorry. Maintaining self-control is an assertive behavior. Maintaining that ability to breathe and not go into extreme fight or flight. And behaving as an equal to others, being assertive, not talking down to somebody or not being helpless and expecting people to do things for you. You are being an adult. Acknowledging that you can't control other people's behaviors, but you can control how you react to them. And that is hard for a lot of us. But acknowledging we can't control other people's thoughts or behaviors because they're theirs. And my attempt to control those is a boundary violation. I can control my reaction to them. If I don't like their behaviors, then I can tell them so. If I disagree with their opinions, if it's appropriate, I can tell them so. Or I can remove myself from the situation or whatever I need to do. Or I can just accept that, hey, we're going to agree to disagree. Being open to criticism and compliments is also assertive. If you're not in fight or flight, when somebody's giving you feedback, it can be very helpful. Express yourself in a positive way. This is a stupid idea. Well, that's not real positive. Or you could say, well, that's one way of doing it. Let's look at the benefits and the drawbacks. All right. So you're not saying it's right or it's wrong. You're just acknowledging, okay, that's one way of doing it because it is. Another example, you are the laziest employee that I have working for me. Or I know the work can seem overwhelming, but in order for the department to bill, I have to have your reports within 72 hours of service. What can we do to try to help? Or is there something I can do to try to help you meet that target? Or instead of, I hate that restaurant or movie or whatever it is, that's one place we could go, but I would really prefer to go to. I'm putting it out there. Now, the person I'm going to dinner with may say, no, I want to go to the first place. And then I have a choice to make. But if I state my preferences, then I'm being assertive. Giving your opinion. Well, we all have opinions. Opinions are qualitative. That means my opinion of something is whether it's good, it's bad, it's fair, it's helpful, but it's not fact. I am stating the quality that I perceive in your report, your work product, even your thoughts. If you state your opinion about something and I say, well, that's a fair opinion, that's my opinion. Opinions are a combination of the current situation plus prior learning. My opinion of things is going to be shaped by my prior experiences. Something that I think is overly inappropriate, overly violent, for example, in a movie, other people may have no problems with. My opinion is based on my prior experiences, my learning, and what that scene in that movie or what that movie triggers in me. So I may perceive it as a bad movie because it was too violent. Own your opinion. Good opinions are supported by facts. In clinical documentation, we're stating our opinion of somebody's diagnosis as evidenced by, I believe this person has major depressive disorder as evidenced by. If I'm stating an opinion about a restaurant, I think that's a great restaurant because they get you in on time, there's no wait, the food is hot, it's whatever my facts are that are informing, that are helping shape my opinion about that restaurant. If the opinion is negative, you can also try identifying what you would change. That restaurant, I really don't like it because there's always a wait and it's dirty. There's stuff all over the floor. If they would clean up more often, then I might feel more comfortable going there. And we need to respect other people's opinions. Some people may not have problems with there being, trash on the floor and stuff. They're just like, whatever. I'm not eating on the floor. I'm eating on the table. I statements have 3 specific elements. The feeling. I get anxious when you're late and do not call. That's my feeling. The behavior. It would really help me feel less anxious if you would call if you're going to be late. The tangible effect. So if you call when you're going to be late, I'll be less anxious and when you get home, so I won't be all stressed out. Now, obviously, you're going to say that in a more concise fashion, but it states, I have this feeling. I would appreciate if you would modify your behavior to do this, and this is the benefit to you. Techniques for becoming assertive. Behavioral rehearsal. Practice, practice, practice. Practice in the mirror. If you're going to have an assertive conversation with your employee or your boss or your spouse, practice in the mirror if you need to. I still do that to this day. Repeated assertion. Stay focused and avoid getting sidetracked. So continue to assert your position and don't get sidetracked by other things. People, when they start feeling defensive, may try to pull your attention other places. You're telling them, I feel angry that you didn't finish your chores today. And they say, don't you want me to get my homework done for school? Well, yes, I do, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you didn't get your chores done. Fogging allows you to receive criticism comfortably. You acknowledge the criticism, agree that there may be some truth to what they say, but remain the judge of your choice of action and your beliefs. I hear you disagree with me about this, and there's certainly evidence to support your points. However, or maybe just leave it at, and yes, there's certainly evidence to support your points, and you may leave it at that. And finding a workable compromise. If you're being assertive about chores, about work duties, about something else, you may not be able to get your own way. You can say what you want, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get it. So what would you compromise? Where's the middle ground? Nonverbals, key points, baselining. What one person does means very different things than what another person does. So baselining means watching that person and seeing how often do they do a particular nonverbal. How often do they sit like this? How often do they cross or uncross their legs or fidget or whatever it is? And so you can figure out what's typical for that person. Congruence. If their nonverbals are congruent with their verbals, then that tells you a lot. If their nonverbals are non-congruent, so they're saying, oh yeah, that's not a problem at all, then you can see the facial expression and the closed off posture saying, I'm saying the words, but that's not what I believe. Cue clusters and the rule of 4. Identify, not using just one thing, like somebody's crossed arms, to make a judgment. You want to look at cue clusters and try to find 4 different nonverbals that may indicate more clearly what the person is thinking. So for example, closed posture could mean I'm angry, could mean I'm protecting myself from you, could mean go ahead, just say what you need to say. I'm trying to hold it together because I'm in pain. I'm about to double over. Or it could mean I'm cold. We don't know what closed posture necessarily means. And you can learn more at thebodylanguageproject.com. Constructive feedback is objective and measurable. You don't want to say you are lazy. That doesn't help the person. They're like, well, what do you mean? You can say you have failed to complete your assignment for the past 3 weeks. That's objective. Stupid. Well, that's an awful word to use anyway, but that doesn't help. You can say Sam has difficulty with following basic instructions for opening his register. So constructive feedback is always objective. It identifies what the issue is and potentially how it could be resolved. Provides information that a person can choose to address and or presents an actionable problem, and provides possible solutions to help develop an action plan. When you're making requests assertively, you state the reason for your request. I'm feeling exhausted and overwhelmed trying to manage all these tasks. I recognize that as a result, my work product has gone down. So this is how I feel. This is the problem. I'm having difficulty prioritizing. That's the reason for my request, and I'm going to request help from you. State what you need in the situation. I need help prioritizing which of these tasks is most important. Learn how to say no. Saying no doesn't mean you're rejecting the person. Saying no means that you are rejecting or saying you're not going to do something or not going to agree with something. It doesn't mean you're rejecting the person. Poor time management leads to stress and irritability and the downfall of assertiveness. When we get overwhelmed, we tend to become more aggressive because we're in that fight or flight state. Get in touch with what's important for you and your rich and meaningful life, both, at work and in the rest of your life. And learn how to say no assertively. No, I'd rather not, is sort of the hedge, but I will if I need to. No, but if it's an emergency, I guess I can do it. Or no under any circumstances. Hard no, not gonna do it. There are a lot of activities at the end of your presentation that can be very helpful for people to help them learn how to be assertive. For example, identify areas where you are and are not assertive, and then practice being assertive in those particular areas. Maybe I'm not good about being assertive regarding my physical space. So I need to practice telling people, I need you to back up a little bit. I may not be assertive in making new relationships. So maybe I need to work on that. I may not be assertive in intimate activities or setting boundaries. Maybe I'm assertive in private, but in public or large groups, I just crawl into my shell. Okay. Maybe I'm not assertive around authority figures or about money matters, or when it comes to my own creativity, I am not assertive. So we need to encourage people to look at areas of their life in which they may not be assertive, because they can be assertive sometimes, but not all the time. Encourage people to face their fears and practice being assertive with moderate self-exposure. So for example, asking a person you like what time it is, just opening that discussion. And you can graduate, use systematic desensitization to become more assertive over time. Develop your social skills to improve your self-confidence. And finally, guilt and shame happen for a lot of people when it comes to being assertive. So we need to encourage them if they feel guilt or shame when they are being assertive, make room for it. Write down or talk about why it's so tough to be assertive or why they feel guilty. What stuff is that bringing up when they were assertive in the past? Why is that being assertive creating that feeling of self-anger? And talk to other people about how to accept that feeling of guilt and let it go. Reinforce the healthy belief that you have needs like everyone else and that it's your basic right to meet them in a healthy and respectful manner. Dig deep why you really feel guilt or shame. What kind of errors were made in your upbringing that put a tough emotional burden on your assertiveness? And sometimes it's a great chance to talk back to your inner critic when you start feeling guilt-ridden or ashamed. Talking back to that inner critic and saying, you know what? No, this is not wrong. I deserve to be assertive. I deserve to get my needs met. With every small exposure, you'll realize that it feels good to meet your needs and that it's okay to do so, and be patient and persistent. Assertive communication means stating your feelings, thoughts, and needs in a respectful but owning manner. Social barriers are those created when you start acting differently than those in your social circle expect. So it's a learning process for both of you. Belief barriers are those automatic thoughts and schemas that help us interpret events based on past learning. So our belief about how somebody is going to react to our assertiveness. When being assertive, it's best to provide your opinion or observation supported by facts. And when making requests, it's ideal to create a win-win by pointing out what is currently wrong, what needs to happen, and how it will benefit both parties. I appreciate you all for being here today. Are there any questions? For those of you who are still with me, who are needing live CEUs, remember we've got another 3-hour CEU coming up this Saturday. It's on the neuroscience of mental health. So, that's one of those topics that I just love to talk about. But we'll be talking a lot about the neurotransmitters and the hormones. And I think I'm going to do an extra little focus on oxytocin. Just to sort of shake things up a little bit. But that is available, so you can get an additional 3 hours. If you are an unlimited CEU member at all CEUs, the Saturday workshop is already included. If you are not an unlimited member at all CEUs, but you need those 3 extra hours, you can purchase it a la carte. Wonderful, Coinda. I look forward to seeing you. Please, everybody, if you would like, share, let people know about the channel, about this video. Please comment down below any follow-on videos that you might like to see. I really am trying to meet the needs of the current set of active viewers. Hello, Bob and Rochelle. I didn't see you come in. You're welcome, G Bless. No problem, JG. Patricia, have a great day. You're welcome, Neil. Bye-bye. Asagura, glad you were here. Dallas. Excellent suggestion. The 5 Secrets of Effective Communication by David Burns. Haven't read it, but certainly going to add that to my list. You are quite welcome, Greater Perspective. You're quite welcome, Paula. Always great to see you, Roller Girl. For those of you who, well, I guess clinicians can come too, just like everybody else. I will probably, starting next week, be starting to do some live Q&As again. How often I do them is kind of up in the air. I have a pending job interview, so we'll see how all that shakes out. But definitely going to start doing at least one a week. Well, glad to see you. Love, love, love from Wyoming. I think this is maybe the first time you've been here, so welcome. Hello, Will. I am glad you were able to listen while you worked out. I know there are a lot of people that listen to my Addiction Counselor Exam Review podcast or my Counselor Toolbox podcast while they work out, which, you know, God bless them. I need to have a good strong beat going when I work out. I just can't focus on spoken word, but if it works for you, more power to you. That's awesome. No, unfortunately, you cannot get CEUs for the Q&A in any state. I don't have those approved for CEUs. I'm so glad you still like the channel, and I really am glad to see you back, Roller Girl. I know you've been to the past few, but there was a minute where you weren't around. You are quite welcome, Rupa and CNS. Well, that's fabulous, Will. I am grateful that you choose to listen to us, or me at this point. Oh, wow. Well, welcome back into the profession, Coinda. It's, you know, I don't really think it has changed all that much, except for the fact there's a lot more people willing to reach out for help or needing help. I don't know. I tend to think it's a little bit of both, but either way. Okie dokie, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will see some of you on Saturday. Otherwise, I will see hopefully everybody when we do the live Q&A next Monday at 1 p.m. EST.